Hi, this is Tanker Car Transit. Two different tanks, one for retrofit. We'll look at the retrofit first with sub tanks. So there's no residual water or minimum residual water, and it can be use the air brakes as air compressor for the pressure washer, which has it's holes are cut in the sign walls where the saddle laps connect, and they're welded from the inside, and they will need to be inspected. And so let's look at the tanker car retrofit. We have the air brake pipes going through the center to the field center, the shield plate into the water tanks, and then we'll do a more dotted line one. This one's my best one. So you can see there's a cavity in the water saddles, and these could be put on with a crane, just putting an eye bolt on. And then over here, it fills from the top half is water, and then these holes right here fill in, and then they have pressure washer heads going through the sides, and so what we did is we have the two saddles on the left and right of the tank with a bar that's going to be welded in the middle. So we'll have to cut holes into so there's a cutting image from the interior into the saddlebag, and then welded with pressure nozzle hose installed in the wall. The sump tanks are on the bottom. They collect the residual fuel or the residual water, which would collect on the bottom half of the tank before it. So it actually collects in this tank under here, which had to be kept short because this is the railroad truck mounting. This right here is the main railroad truck mounting. So they're small tanks, and then they can be taken off and on with a ribbon. So instead of welding, you could ribbon it, or you can weld it. But if we didn't want to weld on the tank, we would use ribbons, and then also the saddlebags on the top, leaving us with just welding the center and then hooking up the brake pipe hoses. And so this over here would be the bottom valve, and then it would split into a T and have another, or like split into a T so it drains into the sump pumps, and then it would empty out so we could wash them in transit. Now let's look at the ones that would be newly manufactured. That's retrofitting the old to wash tanker cars on the clean, and then I'll show you the dump base. So let's look at the retro. This is the retro one. Alright, this was the original one. I kept the same ideas. Might as well use the same sump pump. Basically, all this is now there's an inner cavity, which instead of the tanker cars having a single cavity wall, there's an inner cavity wall. We keep the bands just for keep it nice in case you didn't want to weld on the tank. And then there's sump pumps. The sump drains are on the bottom. And then the hose goes right here. The shield could be used as the fire shield would have a gap, could be used, or it could be directly connected to the sidewalls. Sidewalls have baffles where they collect from the top and fill in. So this is majorly a top. So we can say that the water would stop on this plane right here of revolve 1, and then you can see that there's a small, we'll look at the front, where this brick is, that keeps the water from going down, and or it can go all the way around. But this inner track right here where this filling is, that's where the water cavity is. And then the sump pumps and the sump drains, the pressure wide piping on both front and back crossed over, used with a double heading in the back, just so the air compressor can run in all the tanker cars when they're connected. And in transit and still have brakes with the front locomotive. And now let's look at the wash house base. I've already made a wash house base film with 4 different films back in the past, but I moved, so I had to consolidate paperwork, so a lot of it got thrown away. So let's just look at one of the slideshows we have here, and we'll start let's start with, alright, this is new wash house Adam base. This shows tanker car truck receiving, shows the fuel pipeline loading, and this is tanker receiving. So it would have a track, and then basically we're going to dump it in a pit that's underneath the rails. And then we have basic, these are shown in the other wash house videos, offloading systems, offloading in case you didn't want to dump it in the track. And then we have more loading hoses. This shows an elevation to a berm, piping, and then more thermal relief. The pressure of thermal relief is on the dome of the tanker cars, and that will escape. It usually escapes as gas, so you wouldn't have a problem. It would probably be a little bit of a jet spray coming out of the dome head with the pressure relief valve with the air compressors running, but it wouldn't probably hurt anything. And then this right here is a liquefied petroleum gas facility, large volume facility for tanker cars, water vessels. Shows tanker car offloading station, and that was the LPG gas tank. This one uses no gas tanks. So what we have here is the rail, and then in this red section we're going to do a pit, and then from there, the best idea is, instead of building a whole new wash plant, add one track to the sidings, and then you dump it in a retention pond. Or you can go to this one right here, and then dump it all into a retention pond with, if you had more than one track. One track would probably be sufficient not to have water treatment augmentation. So, this is a picture of packing secondary unit at the ship factory. So, anyways, there would be a retention pond there. And then, if you're not satisfied, I ain't going to design a base, because the railroad tracks have to have a CSX specific. CSX is looking for sites to build shit and what to build. Kind of just like your railroad sidings right here. More railroad sidings, and then back over here, this would pipe down in there, and they'd get washed into the sewer. And but anyways, if also, I want you to check out the Wash House Debase DoD contracting video, or Wash House Base channel base on Charter Conductor. This is back when I had my paperwork before I moved, and it will go over different ideas for the Wash House base, which is about, 33 minutes of ideas. Well, thank you.